The problem with Excel tables is there's no easy way to lock the references to the columns. So when you copy the formula across to other columns, it ends up in a mess. In this video, I'll show you how to lock table references and a shortcut to apply them. So let's get started. Here I've got a table containing stock data, and we can see on the Table Design tab, it's called Stock. Let's say I want to find the total stock on hand for the bread group. I can use the SUMIFs function for that. We're going to sum the stock on hand column, the criteria range is the group column, and the criteria is in this cell here. And that all works fine, but the problem occurs when I want to copy this formula across to find the total value. To facilitate this, I'm just going to press the F4 key and absolute the reference to cell D4, and that will lock that reference. The F4 key doesn't work on the structured references, so let's leave them as is, and we'll see what happens when I copy the formula. Now there are two ways to copy the formula. I can Control-C and Control-V, and I get the same result because when you copy and paste a formula containing structured references, they're treated as absolute. Happy days if that's what you want, but most of the time you don't. Alternatively, you can left-click and drag to copy, and what do you know? I don't get the correct result here either, which is super frustrating. If I edit the formula, you can see both the sum range and criteria range have shifted across one column. In other words, when you left-click and drag table formulas, the references are treated as relative. And what I actually want is to lock the reference to the criteria range so that it's always referencing that, and keep the sum range, stock on hand, relative so that it moves across to the value column. Now I can lock the reference to the criteria range by wrapping my reference in another set of square brackets, and then add a colon, opening square bracket, and repeat the column name, and then 2 square brackets to close. That's now an absolute reference that basically says reference the group column to the group column. So now when I left click and drag, I get the correct result. Now I don't know about you, but I find all that typing extra brackets and the colon a pain. So let me undo that and I'll show you a shortcut. What we want to edit is this stock group reference, and all I need to do is reference 2 columns, and notice Excel puts in the extra square brackets, the colon, and all I need to do now is copy the column name here and paste it in there. Press enter and I can left click and drag and I get the correct result with a lot less hassle. It's not as handy as the F4 key, but it's still much easier. And you don't need to remember the correct syntax because Excel will write it for you. The double square bracket trick doesn't just work for single columns, it works for multiple columns too. For example, here I want to use XLOOKUP to find the product in cell J4, comma. The lookup array is my product column here. Now I want to copy this formula across, so I'm actually going to select 2 columns, then I can copy this column name and repeat it here because I want this reference locked on the product column. Then comma, I want all of these columns returned. So notice as I select multiple columns, it puts in the square brackets, and this time it's going to return all columns from north through to west. Close parentheses. Now XLOOKUP will spill that as a horizontal array. I want it to go down the column, so we're going to wrap this in the transpose function and close parentheses, and there's my spilled array. I can simply left click and drag to copy it across, and my formula correctly picks up the right columns because of my absolute referencing with the double square brackets. But what if I want a relative multi-column reference? For example, let's say I want to find the sum for north to east. I can select those 2 columns, close parentheses, and then if I left click and drag, you can see it's locked the reference, so it's picking up the same result. That's not what I want. Instead, I can remove the double square brackets and I can repeat the table name after the colon and before the last column, remove the other square bracket, press enter, I get the same result, but this time when I copy it across, if I edit the formula, you can see it shifts across 1 column at a time. Locking row references is similar. For example, here I have overheads for admin and marketing that I need to allocate to the various product departments. And I'm going to go into the formula bar and calculate that with a simple formula, which is allocation times admin overhead. Notice Excel places the @ sign before the column name, which means it will get the value from the current row of each column. Press enter and the table automatically copies the formula down. And if you look in the formula bar, you can see the formula is the same the whole way down the column, yet it returns a different result for each row. That's the @ sign at work. Now if I left click and drag the formula across, I get the same problem I had before. The references are not fixed. I need the reference to the allocation percentage to be locked. So let's undo that. And what I need to do here, instead of just referencing allocation, I'm going to reference 2 cells and then copy the name here and paste it over this one. Now I have a fixed reference to the allocation column and my reference to admin overhead is relative. And now I can copy it across and down and I get the correct result. And if I want a total for the overheads, I can use sum to sum those 2 columns. Notice in the formula bar, it references the table name, pops in the @ sign and the double square brackets for me. Now one thing to note, if you're referencing a row for a single column and that column name doesn't have any spaces, like the allocation column here, you don't need the additional set of square brackets after the @ sign. So whether it's a single column, a range of columns, or a row reference, the double square brackets are the key. And while it might seem like a lot, remember the easy way to write these formulas is to let Excel do the heavy lifting by selecting a range of columns and then copying the column name that you want locked into the second reference. Job done. I've also put this handy cheat sheet together that lists the different reference types and the syntax for inside the table and outside the table, so be sure to download the file from the link in the video description. So that's how you keep your Excel table formulas stable. And if you're someone who loves finding fixes like this, you'll definitely want to check out this video next. It covers 13 practical Excel tricks that solve the most common and most annoying problems, from cleaning messy data to debugging broken formulas. I'll see you there.